Happy Monday. Welcome to the Toy Grinds Live TGL. Pardon me, we don't use these three words anymore. Welcome to TGL. My name is Grindhead Jim, and we're going to talk about crowdfunding today. I do have just a very few pre-orders to go over. Not a lot there. And really, today's show is mostly going to be about prepping for tomorrow's panel. So I'm going full bore with it. You're going to have TGL on Mondays, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of each week, and we're probably going to narrow that down to one or two. We're going to have the panel about the same, usually the same subject, and or have a guest. So we're trying to spritz things up a bit, so you'll know Monday, hey, that's solo day, and then we have everything else later. So I hope everyone had a great weekend and is feeling well. Also, those of you that are astute in the ways of lighting and video might notice a slightly more orange or yellow tint in here. It's because the light bulbs in the overhead light here were switched out over the weekend, and the maintenance guys promised to get me ones that were the right temperature. So if it looks different, that's why. That's why. See a bunch of you in here. I see Bjorn Jorgensen and Johnny Sorensen, Ian Sweeney, figuratively speaking, Jason Garcia, the Melvor, Keith Knight, Fuller's Figures, Robert's Infinite Realms, who says, hey Jim, hope you're good. I'm on my way home, but hot take, crowdfunds are just marketing campaigns and I hate them. Fair enough. We'll get into some of that. Just says TGL, the good life. You know, that's a good point. It's a good point, right? I think we've got everybody here. Okay. Ian Speedy says, my Amazon pre-order seems to have got caught up in last Friday's IT meltdown. Yeah, I actually lost a whole like a big toy that was in transit. So it was like this whole thing, and you guys will hear the story in more detail once the replacement actually gets here. There's a whole story with it. So, you know, when we talk about crowdfunding, I'm not just talking about the corporations that do them for toys. I'm talking about in general. And I want to kind of go over what the concept is supposed to be, what it sometimes is in practice versus how the corporations do it, what they're doing wrong, and believe it or not, some of the things that they do right. So that's kind of the overlay. I'm going to kind of lay down where my head's at, and then we'll have a full-blown debate tomorrow on the panel. Oh, there we go. Let me go ahead and pull up our pre-orders for the evening. Figuratively speaking, says, I still haven't found out all the details about the IT tragedy happened last week. Blue screen of death, which means the computer completely crashes, requires a full reboot to come back on. But in this case, the crash was because of a fault in an update that had gone out, and then they had to deploy an update to fix it. And when I did it, When I came in, my computer was blue screened. I just restarted it and it updated like 3 times. It took like 4 restarts in total to get everything done. So there's a lot more to it. You know, maintenance is knocking on our door, which is great timing for me. Hopefully they're just going to go and look at the sink. Squig says, "What's up, Jim?" What's up with you, buddy? Largo's Lair in the house says, "Greetings." I see Jonathan Redmond and Jason Garcia Gain. Okay, let's go ahead and get these pre-orders up, okay? Okay. So this is a different kind of one. This is a 14-inch tall, you know, it's a bat signal. Like, what else do you want? Got a 16-foot cord, so it's meant for indoor or outdoor use. Like, it's the real deal. I've actually thought about pre-ordering this, because how cool it'd be, like a corner of the toy space, and it's all dedicated to Batman and have the signal up on the wall. But you could achieve that just as easily with, you know, some scissors and some wax paper, maybe. I don't know. But this is interesting. This is fun. Like, you could have some cool things happen indoor, outdoor with a bat signal of your own. Again, it's not going to be for everybody, but I wanted to show you guys. Now, this company, Mini Materials, has been around a long time. They've been doing like the little bricks and the cinder blocks and a bunch of other things, and there's some stuff coming out that I didn't know they were making. So, you know, I've come across some 1/12 scale like beer and liquor bottles on Amazon and stuff. We have a bunch of those thanks to some friends, and we also bought some more. But the soda pop never really occurred to me. And these are so cool. So I'm very tempted to get these. I did pre-order them. Whether or not I want to keep them, I don't know. This is a little bag of ice to go with it. And again, this is 1/12 scale, so this will work with just about everything between 5 and 7 inches, which is very neat. You got a cooler, which is neat. A bag of charcoal briquettes, lighter fluid, and there's a grill I saw earlier as well. It's pretty cool stuff, and that would scale with this Jean Grey and the Phoenix. Now, most of you know that this is at least partially a reissue. The flame effects behind her have been around a while. I think this is the older Phoenix figure with updated articulation. You'll notice like the double knees and stuff. I don't think she's pinless, so I don't know how much of an update she actually got. No, she actually looks pinless. Okay, cool. But this is one of those things. Like, I already have a decent Phoenix Jean Grey, but not in the green. I have it in the red. So it's like, do you get this and get the flame effects and then deal with this and then put that person over there with this and that? I don't know. But it's definitely good. You know, Jonathan Rimmon says it's crazy overpriced. I agree, but looking at the amount of the flame effects and how much they charge for that kind of crap, I think that when it actually comes out and it isn't flying off the shelf outside of pre-orders, I think you're going to see this come down to 35 or 30 bucks pretty quick. Think of it like the Black Widow set that had all the flame effects in it and was overpriced. I bet you that's what's going to happen. I do think it's a nice figure, but the finances of it aren't so great. And then last but not least here, it's not an overpriced statue. It's just this 1/10 scale figure. Which basically it's a 3D rendering of a McFarlane pose from one of his earliest Spider-Man appearances in this case. They've had a couple of these, and I find these very interesting. These are kind of perfect if you want to display your love of a character somewhere. It's not really appropriate for a toy per se. I think this would be really cool for a lot of people. The price ain't bad. I'm considering getting one of these because it just looks cool. And I love McFarlane's, you know, old Spidey work, but they're out there. And Bjorn, of course, chiming in. Someone was going to do it, and I figured it would be Bjorn. That used AI to get that background. Yeah, they used AI with the background of the original picture. They said, here's what I drew. Now give me a painted version of that in these dimensions. You know, and it's like, hey, he's the fucking artist. If he wants to use AI to enhance his original artwork, he's allowed to do that. So, give me a break. Give me a break. I was just, it's a statue. Toddy Mac at it again. Logical Blaster says, how's it going, Grindhead Jim? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. It's going pretty well, man. Things are good around here, and, you know, I'm good. Fuller's Figure says, if I can't articulate it, I can't play with it, not for me. Fair enough. You know, there's lots of things that I have that I enjoy that don't have a functional purpose beyond the aesthetic. And I do get quite a bit of stuff like that. And then also some of the things that I own that are you know, articulate, I don't particularly like to pose all that much. I like to give them one pose. I'm happy there. So, you know, it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But it's a good sculpture, and it, you know, it's nice for me. It's nice for me. You weren't nitpicking, just an interesting fact. That's true. I get it. I know that you weren't nitpicking, but somebody watching this on replay will do that. Redmond calling out Connor. That's great. Jason Garcia says, yeah, but if you can remove the statue, it makes for a good background for your figs. That's also part. I can see that. Goldatron says he doesn't articulate much more at his age. I mean, I don't articulate well at my age, so right there. TJC is here. Right on. We got the gang. The gang even. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Let me take a sip of the old tea here. So, crowdfunding kind of started as an independent, you know, indie business kind of way to sidestep the traditional, you know, big pocketed investor kind of thing. You have to go after, like, you know, Shark Tank, private funding kind of crap to get anything done. So things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo started up as a means to crowdsource the finances instead of having to find somebody who just has the deep pockets and wants a cut of your profit, this and that, da-da-da-da. Which itself became its own form of pre-ordering for certain kinds of projects, because some projects you're just investing in it because you believe in it. And I think a lot of the earliest Kickstarters were like that. It was like, hey, just invest in this. And what they were offering back is like a piece of the company, something like that. And then you get into like actual products, like if this had never been made, right, to be like, we're going to make a, you know, 1/68th scale factory for vehicles of any kind, you know, and for $15 you'll get one of these, and da-da-da-da. And it started that, you know, with that kind of stuff. I remember when crowdfunding was kind of at its earliest apex in 2015, 2016, when like there's a lot of good stuff coming out of there. Some stuff you wouldn't be able to get at market, some stuff you would. And I saw these folks that used to work for Logitech, some of which also used to work for like other, you know, audio tech companies. They got together, they were going to make this wireless 3D audio headset. It purported to be the best for virtual reality, purported to be the best for surround sound. They were going to use actual drivers for all the different directions, and they were going to create their own API for their 3D that can like decode all these different standards like Dolby, DTS, you name it. And like they're super comfortable. Their compatibility would be off the charts. You could use it with any device, basically, wired and wireless. And I was like, this is great. So I put in $300 to get a headset. 2 years later, the company shut down and no one got any headsets at all. That was my first experience with like that kind of a Kickstarter. I had kickstarted like albums before, like bands doing albums, like the Galactic Empire, the prog metal band that kind of has a little bit of similarity to Star Wars. I crowdfunded that. a couple little things here and there, but that was the first big kind of risky project that I ever backed in the past. And although it didn't give me a huge bad taste in the mouth, it certainly was a reality check on the kinds of things I would invest in going forward. I'll put a pin in it right there and catch up with you guys. Belongs in a museum. Wait, wrong franchise. Yes. Logic Blaster said the only crowdfunding thing I supported was a HasLab Ghost because I love Rebels. The ship looks amazing. Fair enough. All right. John Rubin says there was a crazy amount of hot sauces looking for Kickstarter money back in the day. That's true. Some of which are actually made it and are around. All right. Bjorn says, I backed Marauders and Chicken Fried Toys a few years ago. Unfortunate pre-pandemic timing. Fair enough. So, you know, there's definitely other things that happen, like delays and so forth. And I've seen it from both sides. The movie I was in, Adventures in Game Chasing, was crowdfunded in January and February of 2019. We filmed in November of 2019, started doing some pickup shots in December, January as we could, and then pandemic hits and it slows things down a bit. And we filmed a bunch of other things as quickly as we possibly could through 2020. And hell, it wasn't 2022 till that thing saw the light of day because of various things. Now, has everything been fulfilled? Yeah, it just took a lot longer than they expected. And seeing what it's like on the back end, as well as, you know, as a consumer, like, it can be a very frustrating process for everybody. You know, they kind of undersold what they actually needed to make things happen and literally sold some of their belongings to make the goals happen. So you got to be careful with that stuff too. From a purely independent standpoint, like, I get how much risk is inherent with that. Ian Speed says, if I had the space, totally would have gone for the Ghost. Fair enough. Fairly speaking, says, crowdfunding is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get if you get anything at all. It's true. Ian Sweeney chimes in, and the chocolates might not be as good as what was promised anyway. That's all true. Any kind of crowdfunding falls into that, I think. Famously, the Angry Video Game Nerd film was funded at a crazy amount of money. And somehow, James produced the most expensive schlock film ever made, which was his goal to a certain degree. And I think even he would argue that his money was probably better spent elsewhere in the production than where he did spend it. And if you have it to do over again, you know, kind of a thing. But it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing for him. He enjoys the movie, enjoyed the process, and I can't fault him for any of that. But audience reaction was middling at best. You know, it's a funny movie, full of in-jokes, but it's not what we thought it could be. And, you know, but it exists. It actually came out, right? So a lot of creators would go out there and fund things like that as well, but they're still coming from a place of a negative. It's what George Clark would call a negative cash flow position. You know, they're coming in and getting all this money and then trying to get things done. Jason Garcia says, one thing I wish I'd crowdfunded back in the day was In Search Of, doc about horror and sci-fi movies. Jason, when they're doing a new series of them from the 90s, okay? And every time they bring up a new one, they'll resell hard copies of the original 3. I have all 3 of those. I have the action film one, and I have the science fiction one. I basically get everything they put out, but they do make it pretty easy to get it after the fact. So do not despair. Do not despair. Fuller's Figure says, the crowdfunded items I've had the most joy from so far have been books. Great flicking through it, knowing the community helped make it reality. I would imagine that's true for most people, I would imagine. Badger is in the house, the Hizoo, if you will. He says, I'm really glad for people who wanted the Cantina and Tonica Sisters, but honestly, it didn't appeal. Setups of people like Red Noise Galaxy way more impressive. Fair enough. Fair enough. So we've covered the beginnings of crowdfunding and so forth, and you guys are already talking about toys. So let's kind of move more towards that space. Everything we've talked about up until this point, as far as examples I've given, are people with, you know, the aforementioned negative cash flow position. Like, they have no money, and they're asking you to take the financial risk on their idea. Sometimes they're experienced, sometimes they're not. You have no idea what you're going to get. Now, compare that to the crowdfunding that comes from corporate entities. And in the toy world and collectible world especially, it's basically, hey, if you want this thing to exist, pay us now. It's not really pre-ordering. It's put the money up first, and then you get it. And that's only if all of you do it. HasLab is probably the most infamous. Then you have Mattel Creations has been throwing their hat in there recently. You also have frickin' NECA's done them before. Like, their pre-orders basically are the same thing. They just don't call it that because they only make what they actually sell. So it's crowdfundy as it gets. And then most of the time they have a certain amount of backers they have to reach. So they don't always call it crowdfunding when it really is, right? And even, you know, McFarlane's getting into it now with superpowers. Okay. This superpowers crowdfund that they're doing is interesting. And I'll pull it up here for you guys to see before the show's over. It's different than what I've seen from other toy companies, and I think it's a little bit more reasonable in some ways. We'll talk about it. But with these toy companies, when they're established toy companies that have at least $1 million in the bank, you know, millions upon millions of dollars, these multi-million, multi-billion dollar companies, and they're like, you pay us first. That's ridiculous that we would ever have to do that. However, when we use the word risk, we talk about financial risk, risks that the company is willing to take. So in the early examples, we're talking about they're taking a huge risk, even trying to do this, and they don't have the money to do it themselves. These, with toy companies and collectible companies and similar types of crowdsourcing, now you're dealing with the fact that they have the money to do it, but they're not willing to take all of the risk on themselves for something that they feel is niche. So they try to appeal to that niche audience by making it available and saying, buy enough of them, we'll make one, no problem. And that creates FOMO. It gives them an excuse to kick up the price no matter how many they sell. That's the part that always gets me. If your bare minimum for something is, you know, let's say 5,000 of something to get it made, well, then that's where you base your pricing off of that. But as you hit each tier where you will be able to get a lower price for that item, you should pass that on to the people that are funding it, because you're not putting in the funds to do it. We are, but that never happens. Sometimes, like in the case of the HasLab Unicron, what you will get will not look the same as the thing that you thought you were buying. In the case of the HasLab frickin' Sentinel, the knees will buckle when you try to stand him up, right? So there's others that could arguably said came through. Mattel Creations Eternia set. Too expensive. Took longer than it should have to make, but when it arrived, by and large, everyone was pretty happy with them. Anything that I feel was bad about that item came down to a failing of logistics more than it did the crowdfunding idea itself. So it's things run all over the place. You know, and now Mattel Creations is going to be doing this crowdfund of the Snake Slayer, something that's never been made before. So for once, at least for them, it makes sense that they're doing something brand new, which makes it super niche. And the fact that it's the Snake Layer, the Snake Layer, right? That it's never really existed before. So it's like, well, you can go do this. And there's been this conceptual art that's been floating around for a while. We're pretty sure we know what's going to be, but they haven't even announced when that's coming out yet. And, I just don't know what's going to become of it. And I'd like to think that they're going to have that consistency where it's going to be more expensive than we want it to be, but the quality will be there. With it being purported to be something like Snake Mountain or Castle Grayskull in terms of size, I'd be surprised if it was more than $250. Honestly, above 190 would really surprise me. So if they put that price up higher, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I hope it'll be good. Let me go ahead and check in with you guys here for a second. Epic Badger says, I enjoy kickstarting board games. I enjoy watching their progression. It's fair. Friend of mine works for a company. They just kickstarted trading cards. And I was like, these trading card games are crazy. Like that thing funded so fucking fast, you have no idea. Johnny Sorensen has donated to genuine charities, but I have never and will never donate to a crowdfund for anything. Fair enough. Bjorn says there's a minimum order quantity. Of course there's a minimum order quantity. But I'm telling you that the minimum to make a thing that they're putting on these crowdfunds is not the minimum order quantity. They are way overreaching that amount. And unless you can show me factual numbers to refute that, I'm not going to believe it. Manic Plastic Toy Shop's in the house. Gotron says, crowdfunding is like scalping. Yep. It wouldn't exist if enough of our fellow collectors didn't support it. Plastic crack and fear of missing out, aka FOMO. Yes, I agree. The Mattel Creations Jurassic Park set was built with T-Rex in the gates. What a total failure. Hurt that it won't ever be made, says Jason Garcia. Yeah, that would have been interesting to see for sure. I feel bad for the people that aren't going to be able to get it. Gotron says, I don't crowdfund because I have FOMMM, fear of missing my money. That's also very fair. Robert's Infinite Realm says, crowdfunding is most definitely scalping engine of greed. Yeah, it's true. All right. So, okay, Gojatron brings up an interesting point. Fresh Monkey / Big Bad Toy Store have minimum order quantities, but they put the money up and don't charge the buyer until the product's ready to ship, which is the best way to do it. I agree too. I think that it comes to the pre-order model. Big Bad Toy Store probably has the best way of doing things. Okay. I always feel secure in getting stuff from them, even the stuff that requires a down payment. I'm confident. They've never done me wrong. Big Bad. Epic Badger says TGCs are insane. Trading card games. Entire conventions are and worldwide tournaments for MGT, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! That new Disney trading card game struggle with inventory. Potentially high reward investment for new creators. Yes. People just love those things to death, and it's a safe bet. And this company's done them before. They were just expanding into something very different, and I'm very happy that the company is flourishing and my friend has a good job. Scottish Geek Guy says, howdy, folks. Howdy right back at you. I love the curls. I love the beard. Don't see any resemblance at all. I'm not Scottish. But welcome to the show. Howdy. Nerd Raid Against the Machine. What's up, Jay? He gave up on crowdfunding after the Robotech debacle. Okay, I get it. And those bad tastes in your mouth are going to happen, right? So my experiences with crowdfunding, I told you guys about that headset that never came out, a couple albums that I backed, stuff like that. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know how I felt about HasLab leading up to the Dragonfly. I saw the Unicron come out. It was my first one I was ever aware of. And I really, really, really wanted it. And I would have bought it if I had the cash flow at the time. I would have blindly bought it because I'm that guy. I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't collecting at the time, but I wanted a Unicron really bad. I'm glad it didn't happen. Friends of mine were like, dude, this doesn't look right. The paint's wrong, whatever. You know, and there's third-party ones that are out now that are the same size or bigger and are arguably, you know, better than the one that that Hasbro did, which that we shouldn't have to go to that. And of course, you have the there's a lot of G.I. Joe stuff to talk about, but I'll narrow it down to the Hiss tank, which I thought there was no reason to make that a Kickstarter. They should have just done it. Because as soon as the Hiss did well, then they're doing more vehicles in the line that they feel they can take the risk on. And then they did another Kickstarter for the Dragonfly, which I did back. My wife and I talked about it. Dragonfly is the most important G.I. Joe vehicle to me. And I mean, for the price that I would probably pay for a pristine vintage version of the Dragonfly, I can get a classified size one. That's just the bee's knees as far as I can tell. I saw the unboxing. It looks good. They've pushed back the shipping date twice. So now it's going to be winter time, but, you know, it looks like they're in the right direction. They've always eventually delivered what they said they were going to deliver, but they've made some harebrained, stupid mistakes. I think some of the stretch goals on Galactus were dumb. There's a different direction they could have gone in. They didn't. These spare heads, I don't think anyone asked for those, and that could have been given to do more stuff. And then you have the Sentinels with the floppy knees. Like, how does that happen? Unless you just make a design and no one ever tests it. They slap it in a box and off they go. You know, with the Hiss tanks arriving in people's hands, they're like, these are great, these are working. And having seen where they're at in the design process of Dragonfly, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be okay. I think G.I. Joe is a bit better off than the Marvel Legends side of HasLabs. I'll probably never back a Marvel HasLab, to be honest. I'll probably never back another HasLab, period, to be perfectly frank. It's just too much guesswork on what they're going to fuck up, right? Whereas Mattel Creations kind of slightly over-delivered on Eternia, in as much as, like, everything they said it would be, it was, but it just looked that much better when you actually saw it. I don't know why that is or how they managed to pull it off, but they did. And they shouldn't have needed to crowdfund it in the first place. I've always said that. But it's good. So I think that they will, moving forward, probably be not necessarily an example of what to do, but someone who's done it without really raking people across the coals too much. And I'll come back to that point here. And now Toddy Mac is doing this, the superpowers thing, which I think I just have to show you for you to understand. So I'm just going to get this pulled up here for you. I'll go ahead and catch up with chat here in just a second. What do they call it? It's drawing board. I had it up, but the thing closed on me earlier. Here we go. All right. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Scottish Geek Guy says, I've been a Kickstarter and crowdfund user for over a decade. Backed many projects on Kickstarter, mainly camera-related gadgets. Okay. Been burned a couple of times. Yep, I think a lot of us, that would be true. Bjorn says he backs one thing at a time. He'll never back anything else unless something's in hand. Johnny says Hasbro made the worst Unicron in terms of quality engineering. That's definitely what I've heard. And TJC says that he would have bought Unicron if he had the cash at the time. But thank goodness we didn't, because there's better options available now. Robert says, I've backed a few Kickstarters, etc. I know someone made game companies' business is almost all crowdfunding. Yep. Scottish Geek Guy says, I came close to launching my own Kickstarter back in 2012. Time of soul project, but checking out the last minute is still very viable method for raising funds for movies. Yeah, I think crowdfunding in general, crowdfunding on its own merit as a device, I have no issue with at all. I think it's a good idea. But I think that how one utilizes that concept, that can be a bit different, depending on what you're going for. Robert and Frick were also about HasLab, but they also thought Class was only in the last 3 years max. Well, here we are. I like this. Badger says, TGL, no crowdfunding needed. Just click that like button. Exactly. However, if you want to be part of the panel, you can become a member by clicking join right down there, or heading over to Patreon and becoming a member there. Panels tomorrow, same time. So, okay. Yeah, Johnny brings up an interesting point about Hasbro. It says, the move and restructure in the mid-'80s fundamentally changed it from a toy company to a media brand company. Yes, absolutely. And then Robert chimes in that, plus the fact that the Hasbro has gobbled up almost every other toy company except for Mattel and Lego. Also true. Michael Schaefer is in the house. Captain, sir. Good to see you. So, we've talked about, parched crowdfunding as a concept. We've talked about crowdfunding in, artisan and independent business spaces. We've talked about a lot of the toy stuff that's been out there in the past. But let's look at this current one that is a little bit different than what I've seen. So what they're doing over at McFarlane Toys is superpower stuff. They have these items up for bids here, okay? They've got a Black Manta vehicle, a Black Manta figure variant that is arguably the best one they've made, because it has a combination of like the cartoon colors with the black mask and everything. That's probably the closest to cartoon accurate I've seen. They're doing an alternate Aquaman that is also more cartoon accurate, alongside of Batman and Robin that are the kind of the updated versions of the original Superpowers designs. And then you have also this Batboat as well. Now, you don't have to back the whole thing. They're asking for $600,000 total. Okay. Like, whatever combination they have to have, they hit that number and they're good. That doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter how many people are doing it. It doesn't matter what they order, just that the total amount order is $600,000. And it ends on August 8th. So a little over 2 weeks from now. Okay. A little over 2.5 weeks, let's say. And in less than 7 days, they've already done 20% of the goal, which is good, but not great. I really hope this funds, and here's why. I like the idea that you don't have to get everything. You can get just this vehicle. You can get that vehicle with those related figures. You can get the Bat Multicraft by itself, or you can get both figures put together. And if you'll notice, this is less than you'd pay at retail. So the $30 for the Multicraft by itself makes sense. But when you put two $10 figures in there, right, and that, you're actually saving money, okay? Which I think is great. Same thing goes for if you buy the two vehicles together. So not only do you get to pick and choose which items you want, but versus the retail prices of this stuff in the store, if they made them, you're actually saving money if you bundle things up. So the Manta Ray Sea Saucer is $20, and the Multicraft is $30 by itself. So that's $50, right? So if you buy everything together, so the vehicles by themselves are $50, and they're including 4 figures. You're saving $15 off of what they would retail at in a store. You also have to pay shipping, so it would probably even out, but $75 for all of this is actually a very good deal. It is under retail market value of these on Amazon or Walmart or whatever. So this is a crowdfund from a storefront that's direct selling to their customers. And then they also have a version where you get everything plus a t-shirt. And it's kind of cool. I'm not getting that. And they have another one where you get everything you saw before, then you get an autographed art card from McFarlane. It's not for me, but again, it's cool that it exists. I think the bulk of the sales are going to be this $75 thing. That's the one that I would go after. Once we look at numbers and if everything's paid and we have some money, I'll probably go for it. Because what I want are both vehicles, the Black Manta and the Batman and Robin. And there's no way for me to get that combination of figures without also getting the Aquaman, which the more I look at this, I love this Aquaman model. I love the paint job on him. It's like the newer school long-haired Aquaman with the Super Friends costume on. And this darker color scheme for Batman, the Detective Batman plus the Robin, is kind of like doing like Legend of the Dark Knight vibes for me. It's kind of cool. Plus going back to Super Friends at the same time. So like this is a great one to get, I think. And I really want this to succeed because this is the model they should be doing. Instead of saying, if we hit this much, you'll get this. If we don't hit this much, you'll get that. This is saying, here's how much money I have to hit. Here's everything I've got in a wave. Buy whatever you want. And Gojatron brings up a great point, which I hope he's wrong, but I think he's not. He says if these don't fund, vehicles in the Superpowers line will be done. I don't want that. I don't think anyone wants that. That's the best part of this line. But I totally get it. Let me catch back up with you guys here in chat. Evan Badger says Tonka, Kenner, Milton Bradley, Avalon Hill, and Galoob all kickstarted Hasbro. Yeah, that's a good point. Michael Schaefer with breaking news says, I may be breaking my vow to never crowdfund a global corporation. Tomy may produce a 1/350th diecast refit enterprise. That's pretty serious stuff. It's pretty serious. I honestly hope, I hope they just make it and don't make it a crowdfund thing so that you don't have to break your promise. But I understand. Highly in Dread, welcome to the show. Says, really hoping McFarlane does a Batman 66 Mad Hatter. I think he eventually will, but I think some of the later waves didn't sell so great. And he's probably taken his, I think he just flooded the market with it, to be honest. So I think he's creating, hopefully he's just creating some, I don't know, anticipation. Well, that's the thing, Bjorn. This isn't really crowdfunding. This is prepay, is what it is. There's crowdfunding, there's pre-ordering, and there's prepay. All of these things are prepay. These so-called crowdfunds from corporations. That's the model it is. But they don't want to use that word. And because they are corporations, and they're not like some broke bunch of college kids trying to start a business, they have to brand their version of what crowdsourcing is, what crowdfunding is, so that, you know, it's to avoid litigation, to be perfectly blunt. So that's what it is. It's stupid, but I get where you're coming from. Robert's Infinite Realm says, that seems really similar to some Kickstarters for action figures like They'll say you can get this figure, you can get that figure, da, da, da. So yeah, those are actually perfect examples of other Kickstarters that have been good. Savage Crucible, which is of those two examples, are the one I'm much more familiar with. They had a very aggressive business plan, and even the crowdfund itself went up later than he expected. But when it did go up, paid everything up, started shipping things, but again, it was later than expected. But what came out was of really, really good quality. Like some of the best stuff I've ever seen. And power to them. I hope that they do well. But I think with, when you're just starting out with those types of companies and everything, no matter how much you know, you're going to learn something along the way, and something is going to change. It's kind of crazy. Gojatron says, I don't recall Robin's Go-Go Boots phase. I don't either. So I'm not sure why the repaint. I think they should have just changed the below the knee molds and done like either the pixie feet or not. Because this shorts and boots thing, I'm not down with it, but considering he's going to be sitting in the vehicle, I don't particularly care. But this whole thing, this situation here, like, I don't know about that. I don't know. So Badger is starting a Kickstarter fund for a box of Cane's chicken. If it funds, the reward is I will stop complaining about being hungry. Everyone wins. You gotta figure it out. Bjorn saying he likes this model of funding. Melvor saying, whoa, this is the first time I'm hearing about the Superpowers crowdfunding thing. Yeah, it just came out like late Friday or something, and the weekend is just complete trash for toy news. No one actually pays a lot of attention. Plus, this weekend, other stuff was happening in the country that certainly takes up time. Yeah, and the prices are great. Like, it's perfect. It's exactly what you want. And Melvor also agreeing with Goji and myself that the vehicle is the best part of the line. Yep. Jonathan Rubin asking, are these being done via Kickstarter due to the big US stores pulling the plug on vehicles? No, I think this is being crowdfunded so that Todd, see, I can't speak for Todd McFarlane. I don't know the fucking guy. But if I was him, I would be doing this for two reasons. One, to give people that wanted certain figures a direct way to get them. So like the Detective Batman, like that's the most sought after figure in that line. I've got 2 or 3 of them, and I wish I had 4 or 5, just because they sell like crazy. Black Manta has been horribly unavailable, and neither color scheme has been available in so far has been great. So this new color scheme, very Super Friends-esque, plus giving him his vehicle, I think it's like, just here, I'll just sell direct to you. So what's going to happen is he's going to take how this does or does not sell and use that to determine if he should just go selling direct and fuck retail, which I gotta be honest, as long as he does something about his shipping fees, I don't care. I would be happy to buy from him directly. Or 2, if this sells really, really well, he can then talk to retail and say, look, maybe don't put it on shelves. Maybe sell it through your storefront instead, or only put the vehicles in certain, like maybe he's just trying to do this for the numbers. But the big thing is that everything in here except for the vehicles is a repaint. So this would not be a good wave for them to put out at retail, because it would peg warm most of it. Like, you'd have a ton of Aquamans sitting there, probably a lot of those Robins, and in some markets those vehicles wouldn't go anywhere. So I don't think it's a direct answer to that, but it might be his way of figuring out what the next step for vehicles would be. Figuratively speaking says it's like when meat companies had to rebrand their beef to Angus beef. There's no such thing as Angus beef. Beef is cow. They branded Angus beef to make better sales. Yep. And Ricky says McFartlane stuff just isn't for me, but everyone likes different things, and that's good. That's true. Absolutely true. Worldmade Cardboard welcomes has just joined, driving home what I miss. Everything. We're talking about crowdfunding, and we just got on to the McFarlane recent crowdfund that just went up. We were just talking about that. Badger says, I prefer buying from Amazon or Big Bad Toy Store. I can live without retail for non-essentials. I agree with that too. I don't have a huge problem with it. Mulver says, this gives me a lot of hope for a potential of a Tower of Darkness playset. I agree. I really hope that this does well enough that he can go, well, I can do Tower of Darkness playset this way and do it. And I'll, whatever he's asking, you know, $200-300, I'll pay it for something like that. As long as the artwork on that box is killer, you know, because then I could just be like, oh, because the Suit Powers collection over here, it's not even all out. I still got the Brainiac ship over here and goddamn the new Batmobile still in this box over there. Everything's not out, and a lot of my figures aren't out either because I haven't found them yet. It's crazy. So like the more vehicles he puts out, and if you put out another play set, and it's like I have to do a whole other thing in terms of display, which is a great problem to have. I would love to see that. It'd be so good. Goji's also hoping Todd considered playset of vehicles fun well. I really hope so too. I'd love to see like 2 or 3 playsets. I think Tower of Darkness is a good idea. Gotta do a Legion of Doom one. And then he should do either his own Batcave or a Fortress of Solitude. I'd love to see all of those, personally. I mean, Fortress of Solitude, McFarlane's version of the Batcave, friggin' Legion of Doom headquarters, and Tower of Darkness. And I'd be a happy camper. Maybe even like the JLA space thing would be kind of fun. That'd be interesting. Robert has heard that Target and Walmart want to shift to toys to online. Not sure 100% true, but it makes sense with what's happening. I agree with that, though. I mean, I think that the issue with that would be the same thing you run into with anything else that pre-orders online. They have to do a much better due diligence of setting limits for people that, you know, are like scalping and all this other crap. Like if they've got to do it. And they're not doing a good enough job yet. But with that in mind, like I'll give you an example. Amazon was the only place to get that Ghost Rider with his motorcycle. And I was actually able to get him over the weekend. He's not here yet. He'll be coming later in the week. But check this out. You can just buy him right now. He's in stock at Amazon if you want this Ghost Rider bike. I love this thing. Like, I love how it looks. And it's like, I really want to get one. So I'm gonna. But he's actually available for once. And I think between that and the fact that I just noticed that the 89 Batman with 89 Batmobile with 89 Batman 2-pack that was selling out like nuts, it's in stock. You can buy it right now. And I'm tempted to do that too. Even though I have the Flash version of 89 Batman and the Flash version of the 89 Batmobile, I'm really tempted to just buy the 2-pack and then just sell those. It's, I don't know. Amazon seems to be getting stock figured out, numbers figured out for a lot of different retailers and stuff, staying in stock longer. So I hope, I don't mind paying on going online to get this stuff at all. What bothers me is the availability and the window of how long I have to order those things. If they can fix that, like if they can make the online experience like the store, where it's like it's going to be on the shelf for at least a couple weeks. If they can do that, I'd be all for it. But it's a technological issue they got to fix. John, as an outsider looking on the U.S. market, it does seem that stores clearance out stuff way too quick, and collectors are now being trained to wait for stuff to hit clearance. Yeah, I agree with that too. I agree, 100%. Gojatron with a very good point. If you buy toys from Big Bad Toy Store, you get a box, bubble wrap, and a sticker. Buying toys from Amazon, you'd be grateful if you get an envelope. All true. The secret, though, is to market as a gift. If you market as a gift, I've noticed more often than not, they put it in a box and take better care of it with Amazon. I will also say that Big Bad on certain things way overcharges. Some things they charge perfect. It just depends upon where they're getting it from. So, but you're also paying next to nothing for shipping, even when compared to Amazon Prime. So Big Bad's an amazing store, and I'm with you on that. Let's see here. Coach Ron wants the original JLA HQ. It was a cave located in Rhode Island. Seriously, that's true. Yes, that is canon. So you want a hollowed out rock that somehow indicates it's in Rhode Island. Gee, I wonder why you want that. Figuratively speaking, I completely agree with this statement, and thank you for saying it. Says Walmart first has to get rid of all their third-party sellers on their website. I agree, because all those resellers do is buy Walmart out of stock and then jack the prices and sell it on the Walmart site. So a lot of people that do that same thing on Amazon, but Amazon's better at keeping things in stock than Walmart is. But it's 100% true, and I'm grateful you said that. John Ribbon says the 89 Batmobile 2-pack so good, worth every penny. I mean, I've already got the car, and I technically have the guy. And I realize there's a little bit different, but I don't know if I want to be saddled with these. I haven't decided yet. Manic Plastic Toy Shop says that it's pretty much prepaid. Yes, it is. That's right. Yeah, and BBTS has the pile loop function, which I think everything should have. Nerdzoic recently adopted something similar. So, a translucent Forces of Solitude, Melvor asks, if they could do that, or semi-translucent, like it's frosted, that would be even better. Give me like a frosted one, and I'd be much happier. So it's not all clear, but it's not opaque either. You know what I'm saying? Jonathan says, I had the Flash version and sold it and bought the 89 version. 89 is perfect. Okay, I'm sold. I will look at numbers next week and see if we can get it. So before we wrap the show up, I want to leave you with a little bit of a stinger. Okay? Remember, tomorrow night at the same time that we start TGL on Mondays, we're going to have a panel. All YouTube members and Patreon members can attend. The links are there. If you need me, get a hold of me. We'll make sure you're there. But we're going to start with this. No matter what we think about the amount of money they're charging us for something, no matter what we think about the quality control aspects, take all that stuff aside. All right? Just push it aside for a second. Look at what these crowdfunds tend to be about for toys. Eternia, which was a failed playset when it came out and is a coveted thing to get. You've got the upcoming Snake Lair for Motu. You've got a full-size Galactus, full-size Sentinel, lot of Star Wars stuff. Some which were good, some were bad. And you go down like the superpower stuff. It's different levels, right? A large portion of this stuff is stuff we've always said should end up on store shelves, which never did. And there's a percentage of it that basically I really don't believe would exist if these things didn't have a crowdfund place to go. So as a guy who I know that I have a finite amount of life left in my body. Everyone does, right? I don't know how long I'll be here. I hope I'm going to be here for another 47 years. That would be great. I am certain that would be fun to do. But I can't think of a scenario where Eternia, if it hadn't funded, they'd go after it again later in time. Do you see where I'm going with this? Same thing goes for Galactus, or for the Black Series Rancor, or Unicron or what have you. They give us one shot at this stuff. And now that's why I back the stuff that I do back, because it's something that I want around. So I am quick to criticize them when they're stupid, which is a lot. But I am appreciative that they're trying to make some of this stuff, and that a lot of this stuff exists. So I think that with a little bit more quality control, better pricing, not being tone deaf to the fans, I think that the types of projects they're making have a place. I just don't know if the crowdfunding is the way to do it, but they're clearly not going to put it on retail either. So what I want to talk to the panel about tomorrow is, how would you fix it? Because we know they're not going to put it on retail, so you can't say that. How would you fix it? So I want you guys to think about that for tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. I will catch up with chat, make sure I haven't missed anything. Manic Plastic, are people asking for links? Because I don't think they are. Gojatron is a wrench, so if someone has something they need to post, please let him or another mod know. But I've got several in here. I appreciate the offer, but if there's something we're missing, let me know. Something we're missing, let me know. Yeah, well, yeah, the one shot is done on purpose to lock people into FOMO. 100%. Of course. I don't think they would deny that, right? And it's the same thing just with being alive. So for me, and again, I don't want to go too deep into this for the simple fact that, one, the show is running over, and two, I don't want to like give away my argument here. But you know, there are toy lines that I'm only going to be getting one time, right? There's a part of my life that's, you know, this is something I really enjoy. If I want an Eternia, that was the way to get one. So I got one. And the same thing is true for a lot of things that I enjoy. I'll pay a little more than I should for something I want if I want it bad enough and I can get it, you know, reputably, right? And then it is a trap. But if it's really a trap, why we buy any of this shit? You know, I think it's very fun to look at these crowdfund things across the board, mind you, across the board, and say, not doing it because I think it's wrong. Well, I think it's not the best move either. I think it's in poor taste. But when you combine that with the knowledge that they wouldn't make this stuff otherwise, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And I don't think it's a question necessarily of just FOMO or the corporations having a lack of integrity per se. I think that it comes down to, look, we all know what this is. You know, we don't need any of this at all. So I find it really interesting when people are like, well, I'm going to get all this useless crap my way. Well, we want to give you more useless crap, but we don't want to take the risk. We want you to take the risk. So if you buy it, we'll give it to you, but only through this website during this period of time, which is shitty to do, but they could also just not offer it. Right? So I think there are scores upon dozens of valid complaints about toy crowdfunding and other types of crowdfunding, to be fair. But I think no one likes to dangle the fact. It's like, well, at some point, there's got to be compromise. Do you want it to exist or not? Because 5 solid years of bitching and moaning on the behalf of the toy collecting, you know, space Some things have gotten fixed, a lot of things didn't. And they don't seem to be slowing down their pace at all. Like, they're going to do what they're going to do. So if they're really going to do as a corporation what they're going to do, I think the choice is there for everyone to make. And it's not black and white, cut and dry. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow on the TGL panel. How would you fix collectible crowdfunding? Cheers, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.